Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes on mountains of research so you don't have to, giving you that shortcut to being, well, really well informed. Today, we're tackling a question that probably hits home for a lot of us listening. Does being really smart actually guarantee you'll be financially successful? And maybe more importantly, if it doesn't, why are so many intelligent people, still struggling with money?
It's a big one, isn't it? We kind of grow up with this idea, this sort of conventional wisdom that brain power equals dollars in the bank. The straight A student is just supposed to become the millionaire down the line.
Exactly. But the data we're digging into today, it tells a radically different story, and frankly, a much more interesting one. This whole deep dive is based on the findings from a really insightful book called Why Being Smart Doesn't Make You Rich. It meticulously breaks down this counterintuitive link between things like IQ, income, actually building wealth, and maybe most critically, just feeling financially secure. And hey, if that title already has you nodding along, and you want to get into all the details, the complete data, the analysis, we've got you covered. There's a download link for the book right there in the description below. Go check it out.
And that title, it really frames the core mystery perfectly, because when researchers look at economic outcomes through the lens of differential psychology, a really striking paradox just jumps out.
Okay.
Yes, the connection's undeniable. People with higher IQ scores, they do earn significantly more money over their careers. Their professional skills get rewarded.
Right, that makes sense.
Higher earners. And here's the enigma that changes everything. That bigger paycheck, that higher lifetime income stream, it consistently fails to translate into proportionally greater wealth. Net worth.
Fails to translate. So the money comes in, but it doesn't stick.
Pretty much. And what's more, that raw brain power. It offers almost zero protection against serious financial trouble. We're talking maxing out credit cards, missing bill payments, even bankruptcy.
Well,
the data really forces us to face this critical gap between just earning power and actually building wealth. It's a behavioral chasm.
So, okay, if being smart mainly gets you the higher income, the flow of money, but not the actual wealth, the stock, then what does? What are we missing?
Exactly.
That's our mission today, right? To unpack this whole paradox using real quantifiable data, we need to move beyond just raw intelligence, or what we can call the foundational can-do, and identify the other specific measurable factors, the will-do and maybe the should-know, that actually build real wealth and that feeling of financial security.
And this isn't just abstract theory. Think of it more like a manual for bridging that gap between earning well and living well financially.
Okay, let's get into it. Where do we start?
Well, first things first. Before we can figure out where high IQ folks might be stumbling, we really need a clear definition of what financial success even is. Our sources are really clear on this. It's way more complex than just a big salary. We need to look at it across three distinct measurable dimensions.
3 dimensions. Okay, what's the first one?
The first, and maybe the most obvious one, is income. This is the flow, right? The stream of money you earn over time, your paycheck, your annual salary.
What you use to live on now.
Precisely. Income determines your current lifestyle, pays the monthly bills, keeps things running day to day.
Got it. Income is the flow. What's number 2?
Number 2 is where the accumulation comes in. That's wealth, or what people often call net worth.
Ah, okay. Assets minus liabilities.
Exactly. Wealth is the stock. It's your accumulated reserve, your cushion. And this is absolutely critical because it does a few key things. It fuels those big future purchases, acts as a buffer against emergencies like losing your job or a health crisis, and it's the safety net that carries you through times when income might dip.
So wealth is about stability and future opportunity. Makes sense.
Right. It represents that longer-term financial health.
And the third pillar, you said it often gets mixed up with wealth, but it's different.
It is distinct, yeah. The third pillar is financial security.
Okay, how's that different from just having wealth?
Financial security is really defined by the absence of financial difficulty. It's about protecting your ability to borrow money reliably and affordably in the future. So we're talking about avoiding things that trash your credit score, like constantly hitting your credit card limits, missing payments, defaulting on loans, or worst case, declaring bankruptcy.
Ah, okay. So wealth is the cushion you have, but security is about keeping your financial reputation intact so you can access things like loans later.
You got it. If wealth is the cushion, security is kind of the protective barrier around your future financial options. It ensures things like mortgages or business loans remain possible.
Okay, 3 pillars: income, wealth, security. And the core issue here, based on the sources, is that intelligence IQ is strongly linked to that first one, income.
Very strongly linked. Decades of research confirm it. High cognitive ability reliably predicts a superior income stream.
But the connection just sort of falls apart when we look at wealth and security.
That's exactly where the traditional assumption smart people make smart money choices just collapses under the weight of the data. The link breaks down precisely there.
All right, let's nail down this IQ premium then. The actual measurable benefit that intelligence gives you in terms of earning. The data here is pretty solid, right?
Oh, absolutely robust. It's undeniable. Research that tracks people literally from childhood onwards shows that cognitive ability, measured early on, has this small but really powerful and long-lasting effect on how much you earn as an adult.
Lasting effect. How long are we talking?
We're talking decades. Like 4 decades later, that early cognitive ability still predicts earning potential. Higher capacity as a kid generally means you earn significantly more as an adult, almost regardless of what happens later in life.
Wow. And they've actually put numbers on this cognitive premium.
They have, yeah. To a pretty amazing level of detail, actually. When you look at large groups of people, studies consistently find that an increase of just one single IQ point is linked to an increase in annual income, somewhere between $234 and $616.
$234 for 1 point might not sound huge at first blush.
Right, but think about it over a career.
Yeah, over, say, a 40-year working life. That single point adds up to nearly $10,000, maybe even $25,000 in extra income, just for 1 point.
Exactly. And the cumulative effect gets really staggering when you look at bigger differences in IQ.
Okay, like comparing average intelligence to someone considered gifted.
Let's do that. Take the average person, IQ around 100, that's the statistical norm. Compare them to someone in the top 2% of the population, maybe an IQ of 130. The average annual income difference between those two people is currently estimated somewhere between $6,000 and $18,500 every single year.
Whoa, $18,500 more per year? That's a massive durable advantage just based on cognitive ability.
It really is. That annual difference, compounded over a career, creates potentially millions in differential income that the higher IQ person has available to them.
It provides this huge head start. Theoretically, you think that should make them untouchable financially, right?
Theoretically, yes. And to kind of standardize these findings across different studies, researchers use meta-analysis. That work confirms this advantage pretty consistently. It suggests that a one standard deviation increase in cognitive ability, that's about 15 IQ points, corresponds to roughly a 5.2% rise in income.
A 5.2% income bump just for being smarter. That's one of the most reliable findings out there, you're saying.
In behavioral economics, yeah, it's very consistent.
And does this advantage stop at the paycheck? Or does it spill over elsewhere?
Good question. No, it doesn't stop there. High cognitive ability is also strongly linked with being more likely to hold a wider range of, let's say, sophisticated financial instruments.
Like stocks and bonds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Stocks, corporate bonds, mutual funds, things like that. Which means the benefit extends to passive income, too. Interest on savings, dividends, net rental income.
So they're not just better workers. They're potentially better investors, or at least more likely to participate in those markets.
They're better at accessing diverse income streams, let's put it that way.
Okay, so we've established this solid foundation. Intelligence definitely secures a bigger stream of money coming in. It provides the best set of opportunities, the highest capacity to earn.
Correct.
Which brings us right back to the core question. Why then do they so often fail to actually accumulate the wealth? Where does it go wrong?
Okay, here's where the deep dive really confirms that central paradox. And honestly, this is where it gets really interesting. That strong predictive power of intelligence for income, it just evaporates, completely vanishes when we shift our gaze to wealth accumulation.
Evaporates.
Yeah. Intelligence is great at predicting the flow of money coming in, but it utterly fails to predict the accumulated stock, assets minus liabilities, your actual net worth.
Okay, how bad is the drop-off? Can we quantify that break?
We absolutely can. We mentioned the correlation between IQ and income is around 0.30, right? Which is, statistically speaking, a pretty meaningful association.
0.3, oh, decent link.
Now, look at the correlation between IQ and net worth, actual accumulated wealth. That number gets slashed by almost half. It drops down to roughly 0.16.
0.16, that sounds tiny, almost random.
It suggests a very marginal relationship, yeah. If you were trying to predict someone's future net worth, their IQ score is, well, not a factor you'd put much weight on at all.
So what's the bottom line from this statistical analysis, like regression?
The core conclusion, after controlling for other factors, is stark. There is no statistically distinguishable relationship between IQ scores and net worth.
None. Seriously.
Seriously. People with below average intelligence, assuming they have similar circumstances, maybe similar parental background or education level, are generally just about as wealthy as people with the same circumstances, but much higher IQ scores.
That lifetime earning advantage of, say, $18,000 extra per year,
Yeah.
it just gets nullified somehow.
It seems to be nullified by, well, behavioral factors. Poor translation of that income into savings and effective investment. The advantage leaks away.
Okay, so the failure is in accumulation, the stock. But you also mentioned it fails in protection, in financial security. That seems even more counterintuitive.
It really is the most troubling finding, I think, because you'd assume higher cognitive capacity would lead to better risk assessment, better financial management, right?
Yeah, fewer mistakes, more stability.
But the sources show the relationship between IQ and actual financial difficulty. Things like maxing out credit cards, missing payments. It's not linear. It doesn't just decrease as IQ goes up.
Not linear. What is it then?
It's actually quadratic,
Yeah.
which is a statistical way of saying that after a certain point, having a higher IQ score sometimes starts to increase the probability of facing financial
Wait,
difficulty.
hold on. Higher IQ can increase the risk of financial trouble. That sounds completely backwards. How could that be?
I know, it's wild, isn't it? The researchers actually pinpoint a kind of sweet spot for financial safety, and it's well below the genius level. Financial distress is actually least likely for people with an IQ score just slightly above average, maybe around 100 or 110. But once you pass that mark and head up into the gifted range, the risk starts to creep back up again.
Why? What's the theory behind that? Why would really smart people be riskier?
Well, one strong theory presented in the source material points towards risk management confidence, or maybe overconfidence. High IQ individuals might consciously or unconsciously adopt a lifestyle that's closer to the financial edge. They spend more freely because they feel intelligent enough to, calculate the risks accurately.
That they can handle it.
Yeah, they might assume they can always outsmart a bad situation or pivot quickly to an even higher paying job if things go south. They might be less financially conservative precisely because they're overconfident in their mental ability to recover from setbacks.
So that very intelligence, that confidence it brings, becomes a vulnerability in itself.
Potentially, yes. And the data shows this isn't just some fringe phenomenon affecting a few outliers. Even among the truly cognitively elite, we're talking people with IQ scores of 125 and above, this vulnerability is really quite present.
The top tier of intellect.
Yeah.
And they're still running into trouble.
A significant minority are, yes. In recent years, among this high IQ group, 6.1% admitted to maxing out a credit card, pushing their debt right to the limit.
Okay, not great.
And even more, 11.8% more than 1 in 10 missed a bill payment within the last 5 years.
Wow. These aren't mistakes because they can't read the fine print or understand compound interest.
No, exactly. These seem to be failures of, let's call it financial discipline, or maybe just operational meticulousness, routine management.
The book speculates a bit on root causes.
Right.
Maybe they're just too busy.
That's one possibility raised. High IQ individuals might be deeply focused on complex intellectual work, maybe brilliant researchers, engineers, programmers, and they might view things like paying bills on time as, tedious, low-value administrative work.
So they just don't prioritize it. Or maybe forget.
Could be. Leading to these kinds of operational financial lapses, even with high earning power, it's a fascinating disconnect.
Okay, so if raw IQ, the can-do, gets you the high income, but doesn't guarantee the wealth or security, we obviously need something else. We need a different way to think about this.
Exactly. We need to shift our focus. Since high intelligence alone is clearly insufficient for building and protecting wealth, the source material proposes a new framework, the multi-intelligence path.
Multi-intelligence path. Okay, I like the sound of that. What does it involve?
The core idea is that generating real wealth requires a whole suite of distinct capabilities. It goes way beyond what a single IQ score can capture.
Makes sense. IQ is just one piece of the puzzle. So what are the other pieces according to this framework?
Well, let's break them down. We start by formally acknowledging the first component, which we've already discussed, IQ or GMA, general mental ability. This is still foundational. It's the basic can-do capacity, your ability to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly. It sets the stage for learning complex things and, crucially, for your earning potential.
Okay, so IQ GMA is the starting point, the raw capacity. What's next?
The second component is absolutely essential, MQ, which stands for Motivational Intelligence.
MQ, motivational. So this is about drive.
Precisely. This is the critical will-do element. It's deeply rooted in personality psychology, specifically in traits that fall under the umbrella of conscientiousness.
Conscientiousness,
Yeah.
like being disciplined, determined, reliable.
Exactly that. Self-discipline, determination, carefulness, reliability, and having a focus on the future. MQ basically dictates whether you actually apply your innate talent consistently towards your financial goals. It's the engine.
Got it. IQ is the horsepower. MQ is the driver actually pushing the pedal. What else?
Then we move into more specialized knowledge. The third component is FQ, or financial intelligence.
FQ. This sounds like domain-specific knowledge, right? Knowing about money itself.
It is. FQ involves the, let's say, intuitive recognition and understanding of core financial concepts: earning, saving, investing, planning. But critically, it's often about avoiding common, preventable, and really costly errors.
Avoiding mistakes, like
Oh,
knowing when to focus on saving versus investing.
exactly. FQ gives you that crucial awareness, like understanding why aggressively maximizing your savings rate is vital when you're young, versus when focusing on maximizing investment returns becomes more important later in life. It's practical, domain-specific competence.
Okay. IQ GMA can do. MQ will do. FQ, financial know-how mistake avoidance. Is there a fourth?
There is. The final component introduced is PQ, or portfolio intelligence.
Portfolio intelligence sounds advanced.
It is. This refers to the really specialized, often technical skills needed to navigate complex modern financial markets effectively. Things like sophisticated asset allocation strategies, optimal portfolio construction, understanding derivatives, etc.
Right, stuff that most everyday people probably don't need to master themselves.
That's precisely the suggestion from the sources. Given how complex and fast-moving modern markets are, for the vast majority of individuals, trying to develop deep PQ might not be the best use of their time. It's often better to outsource this highly specialized expertise to qualified financial professionals. This frees you up to focus your energy on MQ and FQ, where you can likely make a bigger difference personally.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Focus on your drive and avoiding basic errors. Maybe leave the complex portfolio stuff to the pros. So the path is IQ plus MQ plus FQ plus maybe outsourced PQ.
That's the essence of the multi-intelligence path framework. It's a much more holistic view of what drives financial success.
All right, let's do a deeper dive into FQ, financial intelligence, because this seems like where that raw IQ needs to translate into practical, real-world financial skill to actually protect you.
Absolutely. FQ is really defined by applying rigor, specifically mathematical rigor, to those everyday, often arithmetic-heavy financial decisions.
It's about the numbers.
Overwhelmingly, yes. The sources make a really compelling case here. Financial competence, especially avoiding costly mistakes, is driven much more by numerical aptitude than by general verbal skill.
Interesting. So being good with words doesn't help you avoid financial pitfalls as much as being good with basic math.
That's what the data strongly suggests. When researchers try to predict who avoids common financial errors, the quantitative parts of cognitive tests, things like arithmetic reasoning, basic math knowledge, show significant predictive power. Your ability to do simple, accurate calculations, maybe in your head or quickly on paper, acts as a massive protective factor against financial missteps.
And verbal skills, like being a great writer or speaker.
Those verbal scores, they're typically found to be pretty much unrelated to mitigating these specific kinds of costly financial errors. It's the math that saves you money, not your ability to, say, write a brilliant essay or articulate some complex abstract theory.
Okay, let's make this concrete. Give us some examples of these costly errors that FQ helps prevent.
Sure, let's look at two really common ones that can be surprisingly expensive if you get them wrong.
Okay.
First, consider something many people face: credit card balance transfers. It seems simple, right? Move debt to a lower rate.
Yeah, sounds like a smart move.
It can be, but it requires a clear arithmetic plan and discipline. The optimal strategy usually involves transferring the balance to a new 0% or low-rate card and then making absolutely no new purchases on that card during the promotional period.
Ah, because new purchases often get charged the high standard rate immediately.
Exactly. And this is where FQ, or the lack of it, kicks in. The data shows that among people with cognitive scores below the 50th percentile, the bottom half a majority fail to grasp or follow this optimal strategy. They transfer the balance, but then they keep using the card for new purchases, quickly racking up high-interest debt that completely wipes out the benefit of the transfer. It's arithmetic confusion mixed with a lack of foresight or discipline.
And how do people with higher cognitive scores fare?
The contrast is pretty stark. Among those with cognitive scores above the 70th percentile, pretty much everybody eventually figures out and follows the optimal strategy. FQ prevents that immediate self-inflicted cash strain.
Okay, that's a clear example. What's the second one? You mentioned it was more severe.
Yeah, the second one highlights the potential for really catastrophic errors due to low FQ. Rate-changing mistakes, or RCMs, often on loan applications, particularly home equity products.
Rate changing mistakes. RCMs, what are those exactly?
An RCM happens when a borrower significantly misestimates the value of their home when applying for a loan. The lender does their own appraisal, finds the value is much lower, and as a result, offers the loan but at a substantially penalized higher interest rate.
Ouch. Because the loan to value ratio is worse than expected. And this is due to just not checking the numbers carefully.
It often comes down to a failure to rigorously check recent comparable sales data or understand the appraisal process against the specific loan requirements. It's a mistake of diligence and accurate numerical comparison. And the source data here is really telling. RCMs are overwhelmingly concentrated among borrowers in the lower half of the cognitive distribution.
So it's strongly linked to lower cognitive scores.
Very strongly. And crucially, the studies found 0 cases of RCMs among borrowers who scored above the 69th percentile on cognitive tests.
Wow, 0 cases above that level. That's a massive protective effect just from having, well, their decent cognitive ability focused on the numbers.
It really demonstrates how the ability to perform a diligent numerical comparison saves potentially thousands of dollars.
Okay, let's talk dollars. What is the quantifiable penalty for making an RCM? How much does that lack of FQ cost someone in this specific situation?
We can measure it quite precisely. This specific rate-changing mistake error was found to increase the annual percentage rate, APR, on the loan by a whopping 269 basis points.
269 basis points. That's like 2.69% higher interest.
Exactly. And to put that in real money terms, for a pretty standard 5-year, $50,000 loan, the sources estimate that the single avoidable mistake stemming from arithmetic sloppiness or lack of verification cost the borrower roughly $3,771 extra over the life of that loan.
Almost $4,000 just vanished. A direct, immediate destruction of wealth caused purely by a lack of FQ. Not necessarily a lack of raw IQ, but a failure to apply it diligently to the numbers.
That's the key takeaway.
So let's contrast that painful cost of failure with the flip side.
Yeah.
The reward for having numerical rigor, for demonstrating FQ. Is there a payoff?
Oh, the quantitative payoff is potentially enormous. The ability to correctly process even simple financial math problems seems to translate into very tangible, measurable wealth accumulation down the road.
How measurable?
Well, studies using basic financial literacy questions found something striking. For instance, each additional mathematical finance question answered correctly out of a small set, maybe just 3 questions total, was associated with an increase in total wealth later in life of around $100,000.
$100,000 for getting one more basic math question right.
And an increase in financial wealth, specifically things like stocks, bonds, savings of about $66,000.
That's incredible. It really drives home the point that FQ isn't about mastering calculus or complex financial modeling.
Not at all. It's about respecting and accurately applying basic arithmetic percentages, interest calculations, comparisons to your everyday financial decisions. That basic numerical diligence appears to be a major gatekeeper to serious wealth accumulation.
Okay, so FQ gives you the specific tools, the numerical know-how to solve financial problems and avoid costly mistakes. But you still need the drive to actually use those tools consistently, right? Day in, day out.
Absolutely. And that's where the second crucial factor, MQ or motivational intelligence, comes in. If FQ is the should know, MQ is the vital will do.
The drive. And you said this is anchored in the personality trait of conscientiousness.
Primarily, yes, conscientiousness covers things like self-discipline, being careful and thorough, reliability, organization. It's that tendency to be planful and dependable.
And this trait, separate from IQ, actually predicts financial success.
It's a powerful and independent predictor, yes. Research consistently shows that higher conscientiousness predicts higher incomes, better credit scores, and significantly greater net worth, even after you account for differences in IQ.
So if IQ helps secure the opportunity to earn, MQ ensures you actually capitalize on that opportunity by showing up, doing the work, managing the details.
That's a great way to put it. It's about consistently doing the hard, sometimes boring, but necessary work of financial management.
What's the main way conscientiousness actually leads to more wealth? Is it just about being careful with spending?
That's part of it, but the primary mechanism identified in the research is the propensity to plan for the future.
Future planning. How does that work?
Well, someone high in conscientiousness naturally tends to operate with a longer time horizon. They think about future consequences more automatically. And this future orientation does two critical things financially. First, it directly decreases impulsive, consumption-driven spending right now. They mentally calculate the future cost of today's unnecessary purchase, that fancy coffee, the impulse buy, in a way the less conscientious person might skip entirely.
They see the trade-off more clearly.
Exactly. And second, simultaneously, that future focus radically increases saving for the future. They're much more likely to set up retirement plans, contribute regularly to savings accounts, and generally prioritize future goals over immediate gratification.
So it's about converting that abstract desire for a secure future into concrete actions today. Discipline and foresight.
That's the core of it. But the sources also introduce another, maybe more nuanced and really interesting determinant of financial security that falls under this MQ umbrella. It's called self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy. Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Self-efficacy is basically your belief in your own ability to influence future outcomes through your own efforts. It's the conviction that if I try hard, if I take action, I can solve this problem, or I can achieve this goal.
So it's a belief about your own effectiveness.
Exactly. And this belief system turns out to be an incredibly powerful buffer, especially against unexpected negative shocks. It dictates how you react when a financial crisis hits.
How so?
Well, think about facing a sudden job loss or a major health bill. People with higher self-efficacy are significantly less likely to become financially delinquent, miss payments, default after experiencing such shocks.
Why? Because they believe they can fix it.
Precisely. They refuse to be passive victims of circumstance. That belief motivates them to exert effort, often costly effort, like immediately searching for any available work, drastically cutting all non-essential spending, proactively negotiating with creditors because they genuinely believe their actions will make a difference and help them prevent financial ruin.
That's powerful. Is the impact significant? Can we measure how much less likely they are to get into trouble?
The protective effect is quite substantial, yeah. The research suggests that individuals with high self-efficacy are approximately 13% less likely to become financially delinquent following a major negative shock compared to people with the lowest self-efficacy scores.
13% is a big difference in resilience.
It really is. That belief system fuels the grit needed to navigate tough times.
And does that belief also translate into being better prepared before a crisis hits?
Absolutely it does. High self-efficacy acts like a force multiplier for preparation. It's not just about reacting well, it's about proactively building defenses. For example, higher self-efficacy corresponds to a 7.59% increase in the probability of actually having emergency funds available in early adulthood. They build that cushion before the storm hits because they believe in preparing.
Makes sense. What else?
It's also associated with a 6.13% decreased probability of lacking health insurance, again demonstrating a proactive mindset about managing potentially huge financial risks. They take steps to mitigate threats.
And does it affect the kind of debt they take on?
Yes, significantly. High self-efficacy corresponds to a meaningful drop, 2.90% in the probability of taking out a high-risk, high-interest payday loan.
Avoiding those debt traps that often come with desperation.
Exactly. People with high self-efficacy are less likely to feel cornered into those high-cost options, perhaps because they believe they can find other solutions through effort. So MQ, through both conscientiousness and self-efficacy, drives the essential preparation and the resilient response needed for long-term financial health. Hashtag tag 8, synergy and context.
Okay, so we have IQ GMA, the can-do. We have SQ, the should-know or numerical skill. And we have MQ, the will-do, drive, and belief. But this multi-intelligence path isn't just about having these pieces in isolation, is it? It's about how they work together.
That's a critical point. It's really about the synergy, and the research reveals some fascinating and sometimes harsh realities about how these factors interact, particularly where will-do meets can-do.
Where AQ, that discipline, tries to interface with IQ, the raw capacity.
Exactly. And here's the nuance that seems to separate people who are just disciplined from those who actually become successful wealth accumulators. The sources show that the positive effects of conscientiousness on building net worth, that crucial benefit of channeling income into savings and investments through future planning, those effects are only statistically reliable for individuals who are also higher in general mental ability. GMA.
Only for those higher in GMA. What's the threshold?
Specifically, the benefit holds for those at the 50th percentile of GMA and above, so average or higher cognitive ability.
Wait a minute. So if you're below average in general mental ability, being really disciplined and conscientious doesn't actually help you build more wealth.
That's the somewhat chilling finding from the regression analyses. For individuals below that 50th percentile in GMA, the beneficial wealth-building effects of conscientiousness essentially disappear.
Wow.
The interpretation is that discipline alone, without sufficient intellectual capacity to navigate complexity, struggles. You need the mental toolkit, the ability to understand complex financial products, accurately compare interest rates, manage paperwork, maybe foresee second-order consequences for that discipline to actually translate into effective wealth management.
So you really need both, the drive and the cognitive toolkit, to apply that drive effectively in the financial domain.
It appears so. Discipline without the necessary GMA seems to spin its wheels when it comes to building net worth.
Okay, that's a crucial interaction. What about the broader context, like where someone starts in life? Parental background, for instance.
Right, we also need to zoom out and consider that context. How much does inherited advantage shape these intelligences?
We usually think of inherited wealth as the big advantage, but the sources suggest something more nuanced about inherited capacity, right?
Yeah, they do. When studies try to disentangle the effects, they often find that parental education and related factors, things like the number of books in the home growing up, the level of parental engagement in education, even general parenting behaviors, these factors are actually more important than the parent's own wealth in shaping a child's cognitive development, their IQ GMA, and consequently their future earning capacity.
So the cognitive and environmental advantage provided by highly educated parents might be a more durable head start than just inheriting money.
That seems to be the implication. It shapes the foundational can-do more profoundly than just starting with a trust fund, although inherited wealth obviously helps too.
But even if someone starts without those cognitive or financial advantages, you mentioned motivational intelligence. MQ offers a potential lifeline.
Yes, and this is perhaps the most hopeful and important finding in the context section. The protective power of MQ, particularly that self-efficacy component, seems to be greatest precisely for those who start out the most economically disadvantaged.
Greatest for the most disadvantaged. How do they determine that?
Researchers looked at participants based on their mother's net worth, using that as a rough proxy for their inherited economic starting point. They then examined how self-efficacy affected the likelihood of becoming financially delinquent after a shock. And they found the largest protective effect of self-efficacy among those individuals whose mothers were in the lowest turtle of net worth, the bottom third economically.
How big was the effect for that group?
For this most disadvantaged group, having high self-efficacy made a really substantial difference. It reduced their probability of delinquency after a shock by 8.91% compared to those in the same group with low self-efficacy. This effect was significantly larger than the protective effect seen in the middle or highest wealth tiers.
So when you have fewer external resources to fall back on, that internal belief, I can influence my outcome through effort, becomes exponentially more important for staying afloat.
That's exactly what it suggests. It's a powerful internal resource that helps compensate for external disadvantage.
And that's incredibly profound because, unlike IQ or GMA, which tends to be relatively stable throughout life, these non-cognitive skills, the will-do components of MQ, like self-efficacy, they can be improved, right? They're trainable.
Yes. That's the crucial difference. We know from intervention studies like the famous Perry preschool program for disadvantaged kids that targeted programs can successfully boost adult life outcomes. And much of that boost comes not from raising IQ, but from improving non-cognitive skills, self-control, perseverance, social skills, which are related to conscientiousness and self-efficacy.
So cultivating self-efficacy, building that belief in your own agency, is a powerful pathway to financial security that doesn't depend on your IQ score. It's available to potentially everyone, regardless of their starting point.
It's a non-IQ dependent route to resilience and security. A very empowering finding. #TAG IX. Conclusion and final thoughts. Okay, so let's try and synthesize all of this. What does the multi-intelligence path mean for you listening right now? Essentially, it gives us a much more complete theory of wealth. It moves us way beyond just thinking about IQ. We've established, yes, high income is largely driven by IQ. That's where that $6,000 to $18,500 annual premium comes from, the can-do.
Right. IQ gets you the bigger paycheck.
But actually accumulating wealth and achieving real financial security, that seems to be built primarily by FQ and MQ,
Financial intelligence and motivational intelligence.
Exactly. FQ, the financial intelligence rooted in numerical wriggle, prevents those catastrophic, often arithmetic-based losses, like avoiding that 3,771 RCM penalty just by being diligent with numbers. It stops the leaks.
The should know and apply.
And MQ, motivational intelligence, rooted in conscientiousness and that crucial self-efficacy belief, provides the long-term discipline needed for saving and investing, and it delivers the resilience to weather financial storms, making you 13% less likely to become delinquent after a crisis hits. It's the will-do.
So putting it all together, financial success isn't some kind of intellectual lottery that's predetermined solely by the raw brain power you happen to be born with.
Doesn't seem to be, no.
Instead, it looks like it's much more a function of focused, applied behavior. It's about taking the cognitive capacity you do have your can-do and deliberately combining it with cultivating that disciplined drive, that belief in your own effort, and that basic arithmetic accuracy, your will-do and your should-know.
Well said. You need to harness your existing capacity, master that numerical accuracy for everyday decisions, and consistently cultivate the drive and discipline.
The people who get truly wealthy aren't necessarily just the absolute smartest in terms of IQ. They're also the ones who are disciplined, diligent with the basics, and believe their efforts matter.
That seems to be the formula suggested by this framework.
Okay, and just a reminder for everyone listening, this entire deep dive, all these insights, were based on the research synthesized in the book, Why Being Smart Doesn't Make You Rich. It really lays out the complete data, the analysis behind FQ, MQ, and this whole multi-intelligence framework. If you want to go deeper, especially into the mechanics of how to potentially improve your FQ and MQ, the download link for the book is right there in the description below. Definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. And maybe that leaves us with a final thought, a provocative question for you, the listener, to mull over. We learned that self-efficacy, that belief in your own ability to influence outcomes, provides the greatest protection specifically for those starting with the fewest economic advantages. And we know this trait, unlike IQ, is trainable. It's not fixed.
Right, you can build it.
So the question is this. What specific, measurable financial habit are you going to consciously implement this week? Not to try and train your raw intellect, but specifically to train your financial will. What action can you take, however small, to start reinforcing that belief, the self-efficacy that your actions today truly will shape and secure your financial future? Something to think about.
Welcome to the deep dive.